Support for Mission Nonprofit is provided in part by Thurston Talk. Hi, my name is Andrea Capere, and you're watching Mission Nonprofit. Each month, we connect with local organizations and agencies that are making a positive impact in our communities. September is National Honey Month, and we've invited Frank Solaro and Laurie Pyne from the Olympia Beekeepers Association to share how we can protect our local pollinators. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
I just want to share a brief apology to those that are watching that this is probably going to be peppered with bee jokes and puns. So just with that aside, tell us about the Olympia Beekeepers Association. What's your mission?
So the organization's mission is education, outreach, and camaraderie amongst the members. So we try to educate as much as we can, especially our members, and outreach. We have a lot of activities going on in the community, and then obviously with the membership, we get together and talk a lot about bees during our meetings. So, and even when the meeting's not going on.
Right, and you don't have to be a beekeeper to be a part of the association.
Right.
You know, anybody who has an interest or a love of bees is also an ideal candidate to be a member, and oftentimes people come just to learn more about bees.
Yeah, we have quite a few members that don't have hives at all.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you two love about this work and your involvement in the association?
Oh my gosh, well, bees, first of all. You know, beekeepers can talk for hours and hours and hours and hours about bees, never fatiguing, I don't think. But besides that, it's an opportunity to bring knowledge and information about a tiny little insect that does so much for us every single day that we really depend on for food and for beauty, for life. And to be able to take those messages out and to bring them to kids and to other groups, and a lot more people are getting interested in bees and their importance, and so a lot more people are asking a lot more questions, and I think that's really good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the hive itself. It's basically a super organism inside the hive. It does all the bees have specific jobs, and they do specific things as they graduate, as they get older and older and older, and just that interaction between those bees and how organized it is inside that hive. Even though I don't get to see it that much, it's really amazing.
So what are the other organizations and agencies that you might partner with in your work?
Well, we've worked with a host of different groups and agencies, among them the Port of Olympia, the Olympia Airport, the Governor's Mansion, the Department of Enterprise Services there. We've brought kids programs to the Hands-On Children's Museum. We've worked with LOT. We've worked with the Wet Science Center. We've worked
both the Thurston County Fair and Grace Harbor County Fair. We're also a little bit up in Washington Fair right now, and then and then we also have the pollinator garden that we're getting ready to put in here in a couple months.
And tell us more about those projects over just a brief overview. What are some things that you're working on currently?
So we currently have 2 hives of bees at the Governor's Mansion, and that project really came about because of Trudy Inslee's interest. She had an organic garden installed years ago and had expressed interest in an interview in the paper that she would love to have bees there one day. So of course I was on the phone saying, oh, did I hear Mrs. Inslee wanted bees? And then it took about a year or so after that, and then we finally got contacted again, and it's been a wonderful opportunity because the beehives are on the tour. So if you go to the Capitol tour, they're going to take you past the beehives and they're going to talk about the bees, which is awesome, you know, for educating about them and what they do. So that's been a really exciting project. And the Department of Enterprise Services, I have to shout out to them because they have installed pollinator corridors there. They're planting for bees. They have created areas. They're not using pesticides unless there's some dire situation, and they always ask us first about what they're doing. They've been so proactive in supporting pollinator health and supporting bees in the community. We also had a workshop for them before we installed the bees so that they understood what these little insects did and what their life was like inside the hive and how they worked and the importance of gathering nectar to turn into honey and pollen so that they have a protein source. So that was super fun. And they were very excited about it, and they remain very excited about it, which makes me personally very happy.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the other projects we have going on is with the airport. We've collaborated and used their green space we have 5 hives out there currently right now. And every year we get to harvest some of that honey and we donate it to the airport for their staff auction, which then they donate the money to Safe Space in Olympia for the domestic violence shelter in town. So it kind of comes full circle. We also donate some of that other honey to other organizations. We've donated some of that to the Capital Land Trust for their auction. And we kind of give it away at certain times. So that's one of our honey sources that we have for the club. So
You just sweeten all of Thurston County then.
We do.
we try.
So you'd also mentioned the pollinator garden, and we do have some footage of that. So how about we go ahead and take a look?
Okay, I'm Colleen Lynch, and I'm a member of the Olympia Beekeepers Association.
I'm Ashley Nose, and I'm also a member of the Olympia Beekeepers Association. I took a class on beekeeping in college and loved it and fell in love with it and never got the opportunity to have my own bees, so I thought I'll join the club, get a mentor, make some friends, and learn about bees that way.
And I have mostly focused on plants, and through all the school with gardening and everything like that, it just felt like a natural next step to learn more about bees. So bees are mostly threatened by lack of habitat, lack of food, and the threat of pesticides. We plant all the same things in our farms, and then we spray them, and we are surprised when the bees are declining. We forget to leave flowers and wildflowers out for bees. We want everything to be perfectly mowed and all the same plants, and it really doesn't leave much for the wildlife.
The monoculture is a problem because they don't get a lot of diversity of food, and I mean, just like with us, if we eat all the same food all at one time, I mean, that's not healthy for us.
So if you only have corn that only blooms at one time, it's really mostly wind pollinated anyways, and you're just not giving much to the bees. We were offered a really great opportunity to take some of the grass away from the Port of Olympia and put in a pollinator garden. And we have started by drawing, and we are looking to the plants to put in and sourcing those and hoping to start planting right around early to mid-October.
And we've been talking to a lot of the local plant nurseries and hoping to get some native species and some good local varieties for all the bees. What I like about bees is kind of they've got kind of a public appeal right now. They're kind of cute, they're kind of furry. You associate them with flowers. Everyone, for the most part, likes flowers. And it seems to be a really good way to raise awareness for the fact that we do have problems with monoculture and pesticide usage and just climate change in general.
What is a honeybee's favorite musician? Sting!
What is a bee's favorite haircut? A buzz cut! That's pretty bad too.
Yeah.
What do you think, Bob? Did you like it?
That was beautiful.
Yay!
So it's really clear that Ashley and Colleen love bees and love what they do.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, we set you with 2 of the most colorful characters we have in the club, for sure.
So they love bees.
What's not to love? I mean, really, what's not to love? I mean, the more you learn about them, to me, Louis Schwartzberg, the famous cinematographer who did all the beautiful work with the time release, the slow motion of flowers opening, made a film about pollinators. And he, in it, coined the phrase that the relationship between bees and flowers is a love story that feeds the earth. And I think that's so powerful. And maybe that's the one thing, if I could get any message across to people when they say, you know, what's the big deal about bees? It's because, do you eat food? And if you do, then you should pay attention, because the things that affect them are ultimately going to affect us.
Absolutely.
And it will have a public health impact, it will have an economic impact, it will have a social and a mental health impact. I mean, can you imagine not seeing beautiful flowers blooming? I can't imagine a world like that. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot that we can learn from them, from those little tiny fuzzy insects that only live about 6 weeks in the summertime. They're all females.
They are all females.
Most of them are females. There's a very tiny part of a population inside a hive that's male. But I think that if we paid more attention to them, maybe we would learn more about ourselves.
And you talked about the sting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they don't like to sting. They'll only sting once because they end up perishing after they sting. It's unlike wasps or yellow jackets. They'll continue to sting you over and over, but they have a barbed stinger, and you know that's the last resort for them. They really don't want to do that because they know they're giving up their life to defend something. Usually it's their hive or their honey, so they don't want to do that. But
And there's such a stigma about, you hear the word
True.
bee, and if you play word association with non-beekeepers, they're almost always going to say, sting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it happens so infrequently. They're
does.
docile little insects who are not interested in you. You are not pollen, you're not nectar, you're not a flower. You're lovely, but you're not a flower. And they don't care about you. If you step on one or you pinch one in your clothes, then you probably will get stung. But that honeybee isn't going to randomly sting you. She's going to have a reason to do it. And as Frank mentioned, she's going to die after she does.
Right.
So, yeah, I think part of what our mission is trying to change that concept that honeybees are scary stingers when they're actually these sweet, amazing, intelligent, wise creatures that are only going to do it in self-defense. And I mean, it's not even an inch long. A honeybee is an insect that's not even an inch long. And if the only thing it has to tell you you're hurting me is a little stinger, well, then it's going to use it.
Right.
Right?
So you have some other powerful projects in the community that have some interesting tiebacks. Can you tell me more about those?
So, corrections.
yeah, corrections.
So about 5 years ago now, we got an invitation from the Sustainability in Prisons Project. It's a project that's run out of Evergreen State College. And it's an extraordinary program because they take different sustainability issues, whether it's growing plants for prairie restoration or helping to develop cocoons for endangered butterflies. But it's hands-on experience that contributes to the sustainability of the environment. And we were contacted originally because they wanted to have a beekeeping talk at Stafford Creek Prison. So of course I said, yes, let's do it. We had 70 inmates attend a talk, and they asked the most intelligent questions, really caring questions. They already had hives at that prison, but what happened after that was we began to teach the Washington State Beekeeping Association's apprentice certificate class, so that inmates who participated in the program, once they completed it, got a certificate issued to them that they could take with them always, right, when they left prison, and perhaps get involved in beekeeping, you know, once they got on the other side. And it's been an extraordinary partnership. We teach in 4 prisons, no, 3 prisons. We teach at Stafford Creek, Cedar Creek, and Shelton, WCC in Shelton. But it brings an element of, when you nurture and care for something, it changes you as a person. And so the inmates that take the class get the privilege then of helping out with the hives that are on those corrections campuses. And it's been remarkable to watch the changes and to see what happens. And we've also done, they have other educational programs, monthly educational programs, and beekeeping and bees is a kind of a popular topic. There's a lot of interest generated in it now. So we'll sometimes go out to the prisons and participate in those programs. Sustainability in Prisons Project had their first beekeeping summit out at the Women's Harbor, or the Women's Prison in Gig Harbor 2 years ago now. Yeah, 2 years ago now. And it was really cool because there were people from across the country that attended because they wanted to know how to do what they had accomplished. So it's a privilege for us to be participating in that program. We provide instructors, we provide extra assistance, when they need it and as requested, and it's a really powerful thing. Bees have the ability, and beekeeping has the ability to change people's lives. And we see that. We see that up close and personal when we get the opportunity to work with inmates and we get the opportunity to teach them about why these insects are so cool and so remarkable. And, we didn't know they were so complicated, but they are. And contributing to the world in a positive way by learning this information, even if they don't become beekeepers, they can take that appreciation and they can take that knowledge, and now they're spokespeople, right? They can have a meaningful conversation with their family or their friends and say, hey, guess what I learned? And that kind of knowledge and information helps us all become more aware, in dealing with a lot of the problems that are affecting bees now.
And let's talk about that a little bit. What are some tips you want to share with our viewers and our community? How can we maintain those natural environments? How can we make Thurston County more hospitable and help protect those populations?
I think one of the things is just finding your local gardening center and finding some pollinator plants and planting them in your yard is one of the first things you can do to help out, not just honeybees, but all pollinators in general. That's really one of the easiest things to do.
Are there particular plants?
Well, there's tons of plants. Frankly, it just depends on what type of, when you want those flowers to bloom, from spring to fall. I mean, it just really depends on your flavor, color, or whatever. So there's plenty of plants out there. You can go to your local gardening center and just ask, and they'll point you in the right direction on kind of when it's going to bloom and what it is and what colors, and they're super knowledgeable on all the landscaping places around here.
Yeah, and ask questions.
Yep.
When we several years ago, we launched a campaign called Be a Pollinator. It was all about learning something about bees and then passing it on and sharing it with somebody else. And we worked with local artist, Nikki McClure, who created the design art for us for our signs. And it was really fun because it helped people see that just by reading a book about bees to my kids, I'm doing something proactive. But the number one thing we used to always tell people, and still tell people, is ask questions. So when you go to buy your plants, has this plant been treated with a pesticide that's known to be harmful to bees? And if it is, then you take your dollars and you find a place to support that doesn't. If they can't answer that question for you, then I would be concerned. A lot of the pesticides are taken up by the plants. There's a certain class of pesticides that do that called the neonicotinoids. And so we want to know if our plants have been treated with those pesticides. So we don't want to do more harm, we want to do more good. Master gardeners have been a great asset in this community and throughout Washington State, very much interested in pollinators. There is a beautiful pollinator garden that's was installed right outside the booth at the Thurston County Fair. And that too serves a great purpose for educating the public. It's not difficult to do this, right? Do you buy food that's organic? Do you shop locally? Do you support your local farmers? If you love honey, do you buy it from a beekeeper? Do you buy it? Do you source it locally? Honey is medicine, believe it or not. And I think maybe that's one of the cool things about honey. We had a speaker come a few years ago, Dr. Ron Fessenden, and he researches honey as medicine. And he told us a whole lot of things that night that just blew my mind. And
It's
we think,
antibiotic. I mean, it's so many different things.
yeah, I mean, it kills germs. You can put it on wounds. So there's this whole fascinating world that goes beyond the common things we think of when we think of bees, right? We think of honey.
So when we're
Flowers.
thinking about the things that we can do to support those populations, what are some things that we should stop doing?
So that's a definite touchy subject. So what you should stop doing, or what you could stop doing, is anytime you see a beehive, or just first try to identify what type of hive it is before you spray the canner raid on it, because a lot of times people get confused between honeybees and yellow jackets, and they don't mean to do harm to the honeybees, but then they don't realize what kind of species it is. So you're more than welcome, or the public's more than welcome, to give our club, our association, a call. We have a swarm hotline, and email the president. There's a bunch of ways to get in touch and just ask a lot of questions. I've been fielding a lot of questions lately on, I think I have honeybees in my yard, and I just talk them through, like, okay, what does it look like? What do they look like? And then come to find out they're yellow jackets and whatnot. So, and there's other organizations too that can take care of those nests, remove those nests for you, that are local also. So we don't remove wasp and yellow jacket nests. We try to just concentrate on the bees and the pollination side of it, and the bees themselves. But yeah, that's some of the first things you can do, is just being able to identify what a honeybee looks like, really, too.
Right, because you want to be friendly,
Be friendly.
right? When something flies around your head and you start swatting it, that's perceived as a threat.
Right.
So that's a no-no. That's a potential way to get stung. But learning about the difference and learning why they're so important to us is a step towards respect, and then a further step towards appreciation, and we take care of what we love. So we don't use pesticides. Lawns, I could do 5 hours here on lawns, but suffice it to say, clover is kind of a cool plant.
Yes.
It fixes nitrogen in your soil. It's actually it's a sign of a healthy lawn. There's a lot of products out there that kill all these plants that are really important to bees, and not just honeybees, to all kinds of bees, native bees like bumblebees and mason bees. So the more pesticide-free you can create your space to be, the more healthy options there will be for all the pollinators that need them. And bees need weeds. I know it sounds crazy, but dandelions right now are one of the very few things left for the bees to forage on.
Yep.
So if you have to remove them, that's cool. We understand blackberry is a noxious weed here in Washington, but remove it with the least toxic method possible. And then once you do remove it, replace it with something else that the bees can eat.
Right.
Those are great tips. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to touch on? We have just a couple minutes left.
Well, I'd like to just give a shout out to the club membership, all of our volunteers that make all these projects happen. It wouldn't really be a club or being able to do this much outreach if it wasn't for our membership and all the volunteerism that goes on within that organization. So it's fantastic. So just a shout out to the club.
Yeah, and anyone who's interested in learning about bees, or just wants to hang around with a fun group of people, our meetings are on the second Monday of each month at Chinook Middle School in Lacey. They start at 7. There is a sustainable apiaries group that meets from 6 to 7 at the school in the library. And if you want to learn how to become a beekeeper, the apprentice beekeeping class, the beginning, it's going to be the beginning. It's changed a little bit. In September, the transition will happen, but the beginning beekeeper class is from 6 to 7. And so it's a great way to just start learning about bees. If you are interested in being a beekeeper, I would say wintertime is the time to learn, because you have to be prepared in February and March. April's the big hive installation month, but if you don't have your bees ordered anymore in January and February, there's such a demand that you might not get them. But what else?
We have a mentorship program. So if you're interested, you can get that's how I started, as I had a mentor, Roy Manicki, who got me started. He's actually the one that got the airport project started. And it's just been a journey from the first day that I wanted to get bees to now. Every day I keep learning something new. So it's really kind of amazing. Bees are amazing.
They are amazing. I know I said I don't want to overuse that word, but they really are amazing. The more you learn, it's the most studied insect on the planet, but the more we learn about it, the more we realize that there's so much more to learn about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the human body, but this is an insect that's this big, which makes it super cool. It's the only insect that provides a food that humans can consume, honey. And honey is a superfood.
And it's non-perishable.
It's non-perishable. You keep it in a sealed jar, it will never spoil.
Nope.
It's been unearthed from tombs in Egypt, buried with mummies,
Yep.
and still viable. As long as it's sealed, it's good.
We have a long history with bees.
We do. I mean, they were revered. They were considered
Yes.
sacred, by ancient cultures. And not only were they light years ahead of us in using products from the hive as medicine, but they also held them with a very high and sacred regard. So hopefully we're getting back to that, because medicine is now catching on, and there's honey and Band-Aids and propolis, which is the sticky sap that they gather from trees, which is also highly antibacterial. They're using in salves, and a lot of natural beauty products and things are incorporating those ingredients because they're healthy.
Well, I want to thank you both for your time tonight. There's obviously a wealth of knowledge here that we could sit and stretch this for another half hour. And it sounds like your organization is buzzing with activity.
We are buzzing.
We are pretty
It's
much.
beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Do you have a pun?
I don't have any good puns right now.
No? Okay. Well, thank you both for your time. That's all that we have for you. You can see Mission Nonprofit on Channel 77 on Sundays at 4:30 p.m., Tuesdays at 7 p.m., Thursdays at 7:30 p.m., and Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. You can also catch us online at tcmedia.org. See you next time.